Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to pause as we allow our participants to come into the webinar today. Thank you for joining us for our next edition of the 49er Industry Chat. My name is Noemi Guevara, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at California State University, Long Beach. Before we start, I would like to let you know this session is being recorded and it will live on our website at csulb.edu/alumni for your reference in the future if you'd like to share it with family and friends. For the chat as well, we want to encourage you to use our Q&A box located below or above to submit any questions you have for our guest speaker throughout the chat today. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for the chat, Vince Calles. Vince earned his degree in philosophy in 2013. Since graduated, he has remained involved with the campus community, giving up his time as a volunteer. Thank you, Vince, so much for moderating the chat today. And now I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Noemi. I'm excited for today's chat. I was looking at the biography, and this is someone that has done many different things, but just the skill set that she has, I'm excited. So I'm gonna do a quick introduction. Want to welcome Amanda. So Amanda's career has been a long road with a variety of stops. After receiving her undergraduate degree from Occidental College in Los Angeles, she first managed a bakery and then worked as a grant writer and data specialist for a homeless youth services organization. She has interest in marine biology and ecology, and then that's what brought her over to Cal State Long Beach. And then eventually she ended up getting her master's degree in biology. Amanda was selected as a 2020 Sea Grant State Fellow and was matched with Caltrans in their environmental engineering unit out there in Eureka as her host agency. So now she's a full-time Caltrans employee. She coordinates with regulatory agencies such as the water boards, USACE, NMFS, NOAA, the Fish and Wildlife, and the Coastal Commission. So please help me welcome Amanda Haas. Amanda, thank you.
Hello.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because, you have so much experience in different industries, and I think that's going to help out a lot of the alumni that attended our university as far as like how to switch careers and all that. Let's take it from the top. Right, so you first start off in a bakery. How did that happen?
So my undergraduate degree was also in marine biology. I got that from Occidental College in Los Angeles. I graduated in 2007, and the recession hit, and I had a lot of trouble finding a job. So I just applied for all of the jobs and eventually got hired. I was originally hired to frost cupcakes 2 days a week after this bakery was on Throwdown with Bobby Flay. So they were just being inundated with cupcake orders. So all I did was frost hundreds and thousands of tiny cupcakes. And I did that for a while. Then ultimately, I had enjoyed baking, so I worked my way up. I ended up managing the bakery for several years. And so it was a lot of fun. I gained a lot of experience. I learned a lot about baking, but working in a bakery also taught me great customer service skills. I learned how to do inventory. I took orders. So I did a lot of different stuff, but that's how I ended up in baking. I had a whole degree and could not get a job in my industry. So I got a job in a different industry.
Right,
and
right.
It paid bills, and I enjoyed it for a long time.
And that's very telling too, because a lot of the students now, especially with what's happening now with the pandemic, so some graduated, and then how are they going to use their degrees in the field that they studied? And it might not always be a solution like that. So you kind of have to pivot and do something else in the meantime until things kind of start to pick up steam. So you did that for a while, and then what made you then want to switch over to doing the grant writing?
Yeah, so I worked in a bakery until I was manager, and I was doing that, and that was the top. You know, in terms of upward mobility, that was as upward as it went. The only person above me was the owner of the bakery. But I was only in my mid-20s, and so I was like, well, you have to do something. Now, what are you going to do? Do you want to be a baker? It was sort of this moment like, what do I want to be my long-term career? Is baking going to be my long-term career plan, or do I want to try something else? And I actually tried working in fine dining after that. I worked in a very swanky restaurant where I didn't even make whole desserts anymore. I made pieces of desserts that a chef plated later. And ultimately it was not, it just wasn't the direction that I wanted to keep going. And so I started thinking, I'd been volunteering at the Santa Monica Pier Aquarium, sort of in the background the whole time I was baking, to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of marine bio. And I really enjoyed doing that. So I was like, well, what if the part of this I like is the nonprofit part? So I reached out to some friends of mine, and I knew one in particular worked at a homeless services agency in Boyle Heights. And I was like, do you know anybody who would be interested in someone to volunteer? I'm looking for a new career path. And I just thought maybe homeless, like you work in a nonprofit, like, do you know anybody who wants help? And he was like, well, I want help. Wait, can I ask for help? And so I started volunteering there, and then it kind of was the same thing as it was at the bakery. I started doing a little bit. I just volunteered 1 day a week. Then I volunteered 2 days a week. And then they had a part-time position open, and I took that, and then it became a full-time position. And I really liked the work I did there. I did a lot of data management. I maintained their grant database. I helped with grants reporting. So I liked a lot of the work I was doing there. But they were focused on a particular at-risk group that are called transition-aged youth. So they're 18 to 25. Oh, yeah. And they're young adults. And so I did that as long as I could. And I finally got to a point where I realized I was not cut out for it anymore. I just wasn't. It was too hard. If you know anyone who is a caseworker or a social worker or anything related, like bake them cookies, take them a cake, they are a saint. I was not cut out for it. But I really liked the work. And so I was like, well, I'm closer. I'm way closer than I was with baking. Like I used some of the skills from baking, because when I managed, I did things like, set people's schedule and placed orders and things like that. And so I used a lot of that still. I can make a mean Excel sheet at this point, tracking info. So I used those, but I knew I was a big step closer, but I was still not quite in the right career path. I got that desk job. Like anyone who's worked in the service industry will feel this, but you kind of have this idea, like, if I could just get out of the service industry and get into a desk job, everything will be better. And I was in this desk job and I was doing it, and I had the benefits and I had the hours, and I was still not happy. And I was like, shoot, so close. I'm so close. Wow. But it still wasn't quite the right fit.
Man, yeah, so there's a lot of good points that you're bringing up right there already, and hopefully the listeners that are going to watch this, past, present, future, are taking some notes, because the first one is it doesn't matter what position you have, you can take on additional tasks within that job environment that you have. So you can learn a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then you add that to your resume. And then the second one that really caught my attention was the fact that you reached out to, we talk about networking, and you reached out to someone that you already know, because you have a lot of alumni that that's not a skill that they learn to develop while in college. And, you wanted to go out and do resumes and, apply on this website and that, but they tend to forget that it's like, well, just reach out to your current circle. And hey, I'm looking for XYZ. You have to know anybody. And then in your situation, it was like, well, yeah, me.
Yeah, exactly. It's that is something that people very commonly do, and is absolutely a skill that you have to work on. It's not really something that comes naturally for maybe there are some people, but reaching out and asking, like, hello, I'm doing stuff, can you help? It really helps. It can really make a difference.
And it takes a lot of courage too to say, all right, I've reached this certain point. I'm no longer happy here. I need to do something else. And the fact that you mentioned, you know, you're knocking on the door, you're getting a little bit closer. Is that then what made you want to go back to school and say, let me go and get my master's?
Yep. So that's exactly where that came in. So I had put in this time, I had the job I thought I wanted, and I realized that I needed to do something else. So I started looking at other jobs, and I was looking at these jobs, and I I kind of wanted to do something similar. Like I said, I liked the work I was doing. So I thought maybe I could just do this job, but in a slightly different field. And that pivot was harder than I thought it was going to be. You know, the pay scales for what was really equivalent were not quite what I was looking for. There was a lot of, you know, no benefits. The nonprofit world is tough. You know, I realized when I started looking for other positions that I was lucky with the place I had been because I had all these benefits. Because once I started looking at other jobs, I was like, oh, what happened? Like, where are those benefits? And you're only paying me the same amount I was getting paid before, but without all this other stuff. And so I started trying to think further. And my on paper experience was pretty far away at this point. You know, my bachelor's degree was almost 10 years before. Even for volunteering, I had to stop doing that, you know, 2 or 3 years before that. So I was like, man, this is a tough sell. And I started looking for state jobs. So I went on CalCareers and was like typing in all sorts of keywords, looking for different positions. And this was just going weird. So finally I was like, let's stop. Like, instead of just blindly searching for jobs, let's think of a job I know exists and likes, and let's go look at what that person will like, stalk that person online. So like, this is what LinkedIn is for, you know? So I just looked up, I went to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. I went to state parks. You know, I just went to some different organizations and agencies that I went to some different cool nonprofits, Heal the Bay, Surfrider Foundation. Like, I just went and was like, what are the, like, instead of me just trying to find a job, think of my dream job. And so I came up with it, and then I went and looked up the people that had that job, and then went and found them on LinkedIn and was like, how did you get here? Like, what were the steps that you took to get to this job? And there were a lot of advanced degrees in there. There were a lot of advanced degrees in there. And I was like, ooh, maybe I need to
common factor.
Yeah. And so then I was like, okay, well, maybe I can find a job where I don't need an advanced degree. So I was like, because not everybody has an advanced degree. Some of them did sort of, you know, stepwise. So I went on CalCareers and I found the stepwise. Again, 5 years experience to get this job. So that's 5 more years. Do I want to do that? I'm like, well, how do you get out of the 5 years experience? And they're like, or a master's degree. And I thought, I'll bet I can get a master's degree in less than 5 years. And so at this point I was like, all right, master's degree time. I knew I didn't want a PhD because even though my degree is in science and PhDs are common, my parents are both in academia, and I knew that wasn't the path for me. I wanted something that was a little more hands-on. When I applied for grad school, I said that I wanted to do like program design or program management. So I knew I wanted a master's. I didn't want to leave LA. My now husband, his whole family was in LA. We were in LA. His job was in LA. We didn't want to leave Southern California. So I pretty quickly started looking at the Cal States because those were appealing. And I looked at pretty much all of the Cal States in the greater Southern California area, and ultimately kind of zoned in on Cal State LA and Cal State Long Beach. 2 completely different programs. If I had gone to Cal State LA, it was going to be through the geology program and this like environmental program and all of this stuff. And then there was Long Beach, going back to my roots and doing marine bio. And Long Beach pretty easily won out on that argument. So I did apply to both. I went through the whole process. I did get into both Cal State LA and Cal State Long Beach. So I did choose to go to Long Beach because Long Beach was the most appealing to me. And I did not move from Pasadena. I drove from Pasadena to Long Beach for my I drive a Prius. That was about the best I could do. If anyone wants to be a transportation engineer and figure out public transportation from Pasadena to Long Beach, I would bake you like 700 dozen cookies because it just is terrible right now. But So I
You
chose
became friends with the 605 freeway.
Oh, so 605 and 710. I hung out with all the freeways between Pasadena and Long Beach. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to go to Long Beach. I wanted the Marine Lab is so cool. If anyone is still a current student and you're on campus sometimes, once things are open, Marine Lab has open hours sometimes. It was just so cool. I was like, I want to do that. I want the Marine Lab. That's what I want. And my thesis advisor, Dr. Bengt Allen in the bio department, he was willing to take me on too. That was a brave move. I had been out of grad school out of undergrad for a long time, and my immediate experience was in baking and homeless services. It was not like screaming, hello, take me on as your marine biology grad student. And he did, and I am forever grateful for that because it was a great experience. I got to do this really cool thesis project on climate change. I got to collect animals from the local ocean. I got to work in the Marine Lab. I got to work with them, a bunch of other faculty in the bio department. I got to teach undergrad classes. I just learned so much that I was like, because I drove past Cal State LA on my commute, and there were a couple times where I was like, oh man, was this the right decision? And it absolutely was. Like, Long Beach was worth every second in the car. There are people who are going to think I'm crazy, but it was absolutely worth it. All the stuff I got from Long Beach was worth driving out there. I loved getting to know Long Beach, the area too. I'd always been a, Northeast LA person. And so it was just cool to get to explore more of, a part of the county that I'd lived in for so long and still knew so little about. So it was a great school. It was a great area. It suited the experience I was looking for to a T. Also, it was a fraction of a cost of the one nonprofit program I looked at, which was like $80,000. So that was like a huge selling point for Long Beach. It was very affordable as a California resident. So
had the professor not taken you on, is that part of the requirement to be a master's student? Well,
I can't speak for all of the departments, but very commonly in biology, Long Beach is not unique in that regard. You need a professor who's willing to sort of sponsor you and take you into their lab, because you need a lab to work in. And so someone has to be willing to put their time and resources into mentoring you as a student. It often usually comes with lab funding. There can be some level of financial support. If your advisor doesn't have funding, they help you find funding for your project. So it's a labor intensive position for them. So taking on a grad student is a pretty significant commitment for the advisor, just as much as it is for the student. I do know that that's not true, and like not every grad program works like that, but biology almost as a blanket, that's very common. It's also very common for PhD programs that you need to find a thesis advisor when you apply. And then you basically apply to your thesis advisor, you apply to the department, and you apply to the university. So it's a process. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of, just to unpack in just that little story that you mentioned there, because it's tough for people to make a decision to walk away from good pay, good benefits, something where they're already accustomed to completely leave that behind and jump into uncharted territory where you won't even know if you're going to get selected to this thing. And if you did, it wasn't even convenient for you. So there's a little bit of sacrifice that you have to make in order to make that happen. You have to drive the distance. You have to sell yourself. You have to, put these other intangibles in there to this professor to say, hey, bet on me, bet on this winning horse here, because I'm going to take you guys to the next level. So I love that. And I hope that many people have that amount of courage too at some point in their life, because they have to make these decisions that are tough. But if you take a step back, it looks like you take two steps back, one forward type of thing, but it ended up paying off for you because of this fellowship thing that we're going to lead into next. Is
totally.
That's the next question that we're getting a lot of, is like, what is it? What is this Sea Grant Fellowship? Talk to me about that.
So Sea Grant, California, there are numerous Sea Grant offices. There's even more than one in California. There's another one in, I think it's based out of USC, has another Sea Grant office. But the one based in San Diego runs this state fellowship. And the way it works is that recent grad students, so I think you will have to have graduated within the last year or graduating before your fellowship starts, because I promise you do not want to be still trying to write your thesis while doing this fellowship. I will say for this year, the application period just closed, but anybody who's interested next year, they start putting information out there in sort of like April, May. And students from all across the state apply. They're mostly master's students, but PhD students can apply. Again, they are consequently mostly Cal State students, but other folks, there's certainly other universities that also apply. And the way it works is you apply to the program, and then if you're selected as a finalist, you participate in this fairly labor intensive, but very worthwhile matching workshop. It's a little like med school. I think I've never applied for med school, but you do a presentation on yourself, a 5-minute presentation on yourself. The host agencies do 10-minute presentations on the host agency, and then you do an almost infinite number of interviews with them. So you interview with all of the host agencies that you're interested in interviewing with. It's a lot. If you want practice interviewing, it is killer interview practice. I think I will nail every interview for the rest of my life after that experience. So you do these interviews, and then you kind of do some follow-up chats. You can talk to their current Sea Grant fellows. So like Caltrans, we hosted more fellows this year, and we're just getting ready for the process, but like we'll let the potential folks talk to our fellows again, you know, so you get to hear about like what was their experience versus what are they saying, and like, you know, stuff like that. It gives you a really good holistic idea of what you would do if you were selected for that fellowship. And they're extremely varied, you know. Caltrans hosts them up here in District 1. So like you said, I'm in Eureka. But the State Water Resources Control Board hosts several fellows in Sacramento. The Delta Stewardship Partnership hosts some fellows in Sacramento, but the Coastal Commission hosts a fellow in Oakland. Monterey Bay Aquarium hosts a fellow in Monterey Bay. NOAA hosts a fellow for the Channel Islands in Santa Barbara. That was actually how I heard about it, is a previous grad student in my lab had gotten a fellowship my first year. So like when I was there, she was getting the fellowship, and I was like, note to self, like think about that when you're finishing. Port of San Diego usually does a couple fellows. So they're all over the state. Most of them are in Sacramento because of the fact that that's like the state capital. And so any of the state oriented positions tend to be based there. But they're all over. And they're all very different positions. It was very appealing to me because all of them sort of, it's like, do you want to work for the state? You know, are you a recent grad student? Do you want to work for the state? Are you interested in water? Like you got to be interested in water, because it's either watershed or wetlands or ocean, or, you know, there's a water nexus. You got to be into water, and you got to want to work for the state or like some level of service. And so you go through this whole application and interview and matching process, and then the hosts rank the fellows, and the fellows do some level of ranking of the hosts, and then they match you up. And I'm probably biased because I was ranked with the place I wanted to go the most, but it seems to work really well. You know, most people end up placed with a host agency that suits their interests. And actually, from my graduating year at Long Beach, there were 3 of us who were all state fellows. And in fact, the year after us, there were 2 more state fellows. And I strongly encouraged the folks that I still talk to apply this year. But so, yeah, then you get this fellowship, and what you do in the fellowship really depends on what host agency you're with. You know, I was just put right into the mix and started doing Caltrans work right away. Some people do public outreach stuff. Some people do grants management. You know, it really depends on what agency you're with and what kind of work you're going to do. But you know, was an incredible experience, and it really lets you see the type of work that you would be able to do at your host agency. And even beyond that, the type of work you might do with other organizations. Almost all of them involve some level of networking. You know, you were talking about networking earlier. This is like another level of networking. It's like when you go to a conference while you're in grad school, you know, all the people there have the same interest as you. So it's like targeted networking. And then, you know, now that I'm done, I finished the fellowship, but I still get to participate because Caltrans still hosts new fellows. They're still seated in my unit. So I actually do the mentorship for the fellows now. So I do like check-ins with them and answer their questions. And we're going to take on 2 new fellows next year. So I'm still very much involved. And then, you know, there's a whole online community of us now. So when people finish the fellowship, like we have a LinkedIn group, so you can network with people. We share jobs. You know, it's another great way. The only other thing I've had that was close was the Graduate Student Biology Society at Long Beach, where you have like a group of people, you're all about at the same place career-wise, you all have about the same interests. That's like the best place to share job opportunities and stuff like that, and encourage people and ask questions. So the fellowship was an excellent, you know, the fellowship was an amazing opportunity, and it fit into exactly what I wanted to do. I actually used part of my application to get into grad school as my application to get into the fellowship. And this was like 3 years later, and I was still just like copy pasting because the goals were so on point with what I had been trying to do.
And that's the thing too. It's apply anyways. That's why I always tell the students that apply anyways and let them tell you no, or don't shut yourself down, even though if you don't have that belief that you're worth it or that you're capable of doing it. Figure it out. Just do the application anyways and just see what the process is going to be like. So many people are going to help you out along the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you mentioned Caltrans. So I only knew of Caltrans as like a freeway builder, you know, like they're extending this. So, and I was kind of thinking about from what you were saying earlier, like, well, did you subconsciously want Caltrans because you're on the freeway 90% of the time? Like, was it back there?
No, that's funny. It was a career day panel at Long Beach that made me want to do it. So first year grad students in the bio department take 2 classes that sort of help you get ready for grad school. Someone might kill me for this. I always called them Welcome to Grad School 1 and 2. They have real names. I'm so sorry to the professors who teach those classes. I know they have names, but I always call them Welcome to Grad School 1 and 2. And in Welcome to Grad School 2, they do a career panel where recently graduated master's students from the bio department come and like chat about what they do and how they got there. And my first year, a woman came and talked about the work that she'd done with US Army Corps of Engineers. And she said that she had this really cool job and she liked it a lot. And she'd applied to it because someone had said that they'll take biologists or engineers. And I was like, man, that job sounds so cool. Like, I want to do that job. So when I got to the Sea Grant Fellowship, Caltrans, it said Caltrans Environmental Engineering. And I was like, that's the job. That's the job. I've been looking for that job since my first year of grad school. And so I latched onto it right away. I was like, that's the one I'd like to do most. And I still, like you said, you should participate. You know, Sea Grant will let you set boundaries, like geographic boundaries or whatever for yourself. But the best advice is to just throw yourself into it and do all of it. And so I was like, I want to do this one the most, but I'm going to tell myself I will do any of it. So I did all the interviews and I wholeheartedly participated. But man, I was really excited when I got matched with Caltrans. That was what I wanted to do the most. And it was the environmental engineering nexus that I was really looking for and really excited to see. So.
Well, okay, so what does Caltrans do then? If it's, I mean, it sounds like it's this huge entity that does multiple things.
Yeah, massive number of things. So I can speak for what my unit does. I'm actually in what's called the environmental unit. And a lot of people don't even know that Caltrans has environmental. We actually have recently redone our motto to be more focused on environment and sustainability and equity. And so I make sure the Caltrans projects are as environmentally friendly as possible, that we meet all of our environmental commitments, I write permit applications. You know, we do a lot of permits. And I spend a lot of time talking to regulatory agencies to, you know, make sure that their concerns are addressed and that they're all incorporated in our projects. So, you know, most people are familiar with Caltrans because we're out there on the roads, but like there's so much more stuff that folks are doing behind the scenes. You just don't see it. You know, they have to design the road. They have to like do all the environmental stuff for the road. There's a lot more to it. Most of the folks that people see are probably like maintenance and construction, but that's not all of us. There are a lot of other folks behind the scenes. And then even just within environmental, I'm like a subspecialty just doing water quality. So, you know, I do stuff related to the Clean Water Act and Port of Cologne. I mostly work with the water boards. That's my main the main regulatory agency that I work with. So that's like my specialty. But you know, my title is environmental planner. And so that's like that in a nutshell is what I do. I do a lot of planning related to the environmental side of Caltrans work. So
okay. And with this, the water, because I saw this was like water specialist or no, it's water quality coordinator. So this is you're talking about drinking water for the cities?
We don't so much do, no, I mean, I think maybe in a more urban area, because the thing to keep in mind is that I am in Eureka, like I'm in a very rural area. So for us, water quality is like, we have a lot of rivers up here. And so it's things like, you know, are the rivers still healthy and happy when we're done with our projects? That's the kind of water quality that I do, is like, you know, are we,
where are the beavers?
Yeah, there are people who are trained to do beaver surveys. That's a job you can do at Caltrans. You can be the beaver specialist and do beaver surveys. So yeah, I'm not actually out there with test tubes measuring the water. I don't do drinking water, but you know, I'm making sure that all of the other, it was kind of a foreign concept coming from Southern California because we just don't have this number of waterways.
Depend on everybody else pretty much to get this.
So there are a lot of rivers and creeks and streams up here, and it's just making sure that all of those are happy and healthy when we're finished with our projects. So.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, there's just so much stuff that's involved in that too, behind the scenes. Because when I first read the title, I was thinking, so like, is this part of don't water your plants Thursdays and Fridays?
I mean, we have folks who do that too. Like I don't even know all of the things that Caltrans does. I see job postings sometimes. I'm like, that is a really cool thing. I didn't even know we did that. You know, if people are interested in anything related to, you know, we have positions related to climate change and sea level rise. Trash is a big one right now, you know, trash capture and keeping trash out of the roadways and waterways. Like if those are things that people are interested in, like check out Caltrans and just cruise the website. Like there's just an absolute wealth of information there, you know, that people can dig into and look at the different types of stuff that we're working on. It's a lot of really cool stuff and a lot of different opportunities.
Here's a good question too. So this one is, it's asking, how did you learn to work with these agencies that you work with? Did you learn that in school or was that in the field?
That was on the job learning. I definitely wished that I had taken an environmental science class before I had graduated. And had I really known that, I would have like the laws. I was not familiar with the laws, and it is what a lot of people would call alphabet soup. And that was really hard. That was a very steep learning curve. I did not have imposter syndrome all through grad school because I knew I had worked really, really hard to get there. My first couple of months as a fellow, I was like, should I be here? Do I know what I'm doing? This is a lot. So I learned it on the job, lots of Googling, but also lots of mentorship. You know, that's the whole purpose of the fellowship, is that you can't possibly know all of these things. Even if I had taken an environmental science class, I could probably name the 6 laws that they would cover if they even had time to cover 6 laws. You know, most of the time it's focused on the Endangered Species Act, and that's like the big one. to learn about all of the other ones, it was on the job learning and the mentorship. I got vast amounts of mentorship from different folks at Caltrans, one-on-one meetings and calls and classes that I took. I've taken a lot of like trainings. They've all been online because no one's done anything in person in over a year. Yeah. But, trainings and classes and things like that. Like I got a lot of it from that. And then I actually got quite a bit from, this is the first time I've ever studied for a job interview, but when this position at Caltrans opened and I decided I was going to apply for it, I like studied for it and made sure that I reviewed all these different things. I, went through they post job, there's like a sheet, it's like any job. It's like, this is all this we're looking for. And so I went through it and like pulled out all the different laws and looked them up, and like, they have a whole environmental section where all of it's there. And I like went through it and looked at all the ones. It was the last time I studied that hard was when I was planning to take the GREs probably, or like a stats class at Long Beach. It was a lot of studying. But it was worth it, both in that I got the job. So the interview went well, but also in that it really it really increased the breadth of the different laws that I knew about and the different regulations. But a lot of it is on the job learning, and a lot of it is you got to be willing to keep learning. The laws change. Administrations right now is a perfect example. The administration just changed, and 4 years before that, the administration had also changed. And let me tell you, this is a weird moment to be working in environmental laws, because the Obama administration and the Trump administration and the Biden administration are like, they all feel very differently about the environment and the level of regulation that should be involved. And so it's been a little bit of whiplash as we like try to figure out which one it is, because, the Obama administration had made one set of laws, the Trump administration changed them. Now the Biden administration's in, we're like, are they going to change them? Are they not going to change them?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting, but I kind of thrive in like I'm a big fan of action plans and, living documents. So I'm fine with it. I don't mind at all. I'm sure there's a type of person who would not be thrilled with it, but, I like having to work through things and come up with like, here's a problem. There's a lot of my job is problem solving and like, but they're like puzzle like sometimes too. It's like we have all these pieces and you have to make them fit because the project has to happen. And so I like to get in there and like, you just figure out how to make the pieces fit together in whatever administration you're in, because that's, you can't control that. I mean, you can vote and that's your say. And if your side is the side that's now in the White House, like maybe you're more into it. If they're not, maybe you aren't, but like, it's my job. So I don't get to, this isn't where I'm supposed to be like, having that kind of opinion. It just is, and I have to deal with it. So.
So, I mean, when you're dealing with projects, then is it multiple agencies overlapping each other and you're just trying to make sure this is all coordinated, or is it more focused one? No. So they got their own kind of agenda. They're trying to work together.
Yes, absolutely. Like all of the agencies have different, they have different regulations and different guidelines. Where you are determines what agencies are involved. Not all the agencies are involved all of the time. You can have a project where every single agency possible is involved, including some that you probably didn't even know existed until that project. You're like, where did you come? Who are you? And then you have projects where it's like, there's the one agency, you're getting the one permit. That's it. It's like this tiny 2-page application. And on the other side, it's like a 2 to 4 year long process with 17 meetings and 14 forms and checks and balances. And, it really depends. Caltrans projects are everything from fixing a piece of guardrail to like full bridge replacements. The Bay Bridges is a good example of a massive Caltrans project. I'm willing, I wasn't around for that, but I'll bet a lot of agencies were involved in that project. But someone, if someone's going to go replace a drainage inlet on the highway, like that might not be as many agencies involved. So it just depends. But that's, again, you got to be willing to be working on several different things that are all pretty different from each other at the same time. But first, for a certain type of person, which I am very much that person, like this is my jam. I'm never, ever bored. I'm never bored at work. There's always something to do. There's always something new. There's always something to learn. So, you know, if you're into that, like this is a fabulous job for you.
Yeah, and I can see that too. That's why I appreciate you taking the time to talk to all of us about what you do, because that the energy that you have, that enthusiasm, that's what a lot of people are striving for, that they want to feel something, that spark whenever they go to work or whenever they do whatever they're doing. So I can't believe we're almost at the home stretch. Can you believe this thing? We're almost done.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back and look at some of these questions. Some of them you might have already answered. So it might be a quick little recap. So one of them was, okay, how did you select CSULB for the master's? What was it about CSULB's master's program that made you want to go and choose a university? I think you kind of mentioned that one already.
Yeah, I mean, it was the right university to get me to the job that I wanted. That seems so shallow, but that was why I wanted a better job. I mean, I would love to say that it's because it was my greatest passion, but
yeah,
it was a means to an end, and it worked flawlessly. So
yeah, a lot of moving parts that ended up working. Okay, so this other one, as a volunteer, how did you manage to network and keep yourself at the forefront as a marketable hire?
I volunteered a position below the top one I probably could have volunteered for. That was very effective. I had a very extensive background, and I had a whole degree in marine biology, and I was volunteering at a level that was like, you know, mostly high school students and like retired moms who needed something to do. So I had a level of knowledge that was pretty apparently above that of a lot of other, just back, you know, I just had all of this background knowledge. And that helped. But then also I just engaged the staff where I was volunteering. That was a big one. So, you know, I made sure that the aquarist, who I didn't have to interact with, but I made sure he knew who I was by doing things like asking him about the weird shell that I found on the beach. You know, I made sure that I knew I can't remember their title, but like the programming director or something, just by chatting when I came in, you know, instead of just coming in and clocking in and going out to volunteer, like I came in a little early and I would make sure that I had a chance to say hi to people. If I had a question, I would ask the question. Like asking questions has gotten me so far, because sometimes people want to talk about a thing and you've given them an open. So, you know, be a proactive volunteer was really helpful.
Okay. All
You
right.
know,
Good.
it's hard. And if your volunteer position isn't working, find a new place to volunteer. That's the other thing. Some people just belligerently want the first place to work. It might not. Like you might need to find a different place to volunteer.
Okay. And that kind of overlaps with this next question is, what advice do you have for people that are exploring just careers right now?
Yeah, volunteering is a great one. If you're not sure if you like the work, seeing if you can find somewhere to volunteer is a great way to flesh out whether or not you're into it. That's definitely an option. Doing what I did, like look at the experience of people who have the position you think you want. Like, does your background align with theirs or not? If they have a profoundly different background, that's fine. But maybe then think about the types of, like, how can you gain similar experience to what they had? Or, you know, LinkedIn is a big place. Like, just reach out to people. If someone is active on LinkedIn, then they're into that community. Just send them a message and be like, hello. Like, I had someone do that. They sent me a message on LinkedIn. They wanted to know what the opportunities were. I sent them some links. I don't know how it worked, but like, that was more than if they had done nothing. So, you know, if you're trying to figure it out, like, you know, doing volunteer work is a great way to start. And then thinking about the other job opportunities that you want to do. I try to encourage people to do this, but like, go on CalCareers and just type in keywords of things that you think are interesting and see what pops up. Like, there might be a job that you didn't even know existed before. environmental planner is not a job I knew existed before I got to Caltrans, because somehow I never used environment as a keyword. I was using like coastal and ocean, just type in keywords and see what pops up. Like, look on multiple job platforms, apply for jobs that maybe you're not qualified for and you're not sure you want, because you might be way more qualified than you think you are. It's like a chronic thing. People think they're less qualified than they are. So
all right.
Suggestion.
Okay, then this last question here, and given how you shared your life story, what's the next step? Because I see that you're an overachiever, that once you reach the top position, you kind of go somewhere else. So what's the next step for you, Amanda?
I think my current plan is to stay with Caltrans. Caltrans has awesome upward mobility. There are a lot of steps above me that I could still climb. And I've put that out there to like my supervisor and the other people around me, and they're all into that idea. So super short term, I'm an environmental planner, and then I want to be an associate environmental planner, and then a senior environmental planner, and then we'll see. But that's at least 3 more steps. I'd like to go back to managing people in the not too just when I worked in a bakery, I managed people. I haven't done that in a long time. So I think that's like middle management of environmental planning is my next step. And then we'll see if I really like that. Maybe that'll be it. And if it's not, then the ladder keeps going. Tokso Mashakin is the head of Caltrans, and he's like a lot more steps above me. So there's plenty of space if I wanted to keep going.
That's awesome. And as we wrap up, before I bring up Noemi again, any final thoughts, last words?
Oh man, just like, you are never too old to do something. Like, just if you are really deeply unhappy with where you work, like, start small. If you can volunteer. If you can't, like, start applying for new jobs. You're almost definitely more qualified than you think you are. Like, scrape your brain for all of the relevant job experiences that you have had and get those onto a resume and start applying. And if you're really nervous about like applying for jobs or job techniques, just go online. The internet is full of tips and like info from people on how to apply for jobs. And Long Beach has a whole bunch of people like who help with alumni stuff and who help with job support and things like that. Like, take advantage, especially if you're still in school, like take advantage of all of those skills. And if you're not, like, reach out to people and tell everyone you know that you're interested in doing something different. Everyone, even if they don't do anything related to what you want to do, tell them, because you don't know if their brother's boyfriend's sister's cousin is looking for someone, and you could have a sweet new job if you just tell them.
Wow, what a great way to end the chat. And you heard it today, right? There's stories of determination, of courage, of sacrifice, of belief in yourself. Right. And there's so much good stuff. We have to rewatch this one again just to unpack all the little nuggets that you gave us. Thank you again for taking the time to talk to the university, for me to get to know you. I'm impressed, and I'm just proud to be an alum that we're both Cal State Long Beach graduates. I'm going to send it back to Noemi for the final words.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Amanda, so much for sharing your story. Great words of encouragement for our students and our alumni. Real quick before we sign off, if any student or alums would like to connect with you, I know you talked about networking. Are you okay if they connect with you on LinkedIn? Or possibly?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. You should be able to find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, people are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's a great way to find me and send me a message. I'll respond.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Please follow us on social media or visit our website to learn about our future chats and future programming. Thank you so much.